You are still watching Signature Morning on Signature TV. Now, Nigeria's economy has depended on crude oil for decades, and economic diversification now, the conversations around it has become more urgent. Aside oil, what other sectors can Nigeria truly develop to improve our economic sector and our economic stability? Now, in the studio with us, we have Dr. Stanislaus Okeje. He's an economist and a policy scholar. Good morning. You're welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, before we delve into economics and oil, what did you think about the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest that happened yesterday in Abuja?
Well, I think it's just a sign of belongingness, when people say they have a position and they make it public. It's a sign of belongingness. Whether the people they are addressing will respond is unknown, but at least they have made their position clear by demonstrating. I think that's, in the United States, you can see people demonstrating, saying that the president is not a king. Of course, the protest came at the background of some what have been called pardon. You can see people who have committed, enormous crime, convicted and freed. For me, I think what Kanu and his fellow his team have been doing is criticizing the system. He was saying it's not an equal citizenship arrangement. And I think that's what the people who are protesting are saying, make things new, make things proper, let us have one rule applying to everybody. I think that's
All right, now back to the main topic now. So how do you think Nigeria should diversify its economy beyond oil?
Well, you said Nigeria has been dependent on oil. Yeah. The reality is that the government has been dependent on oil revenue. It's not Nigerians. But because of the government dependency on oil, oil has become the major source of monetary growth. As a result, it affects the whole economy. Because the government applies the money it generates from oil revenue in procurement. And because of that procurement process, the money flows into the system. There is a term in economics that says that money is fungible. Money is fungible. If you have money, you can buy friendship with money or loyalty. While I was waiting, I had your previous guest talking about defection. Those people are defective because they have been paid. With money, you can buy food, of course. Without producing food yourself, you can buy food. With money, you can buy health when you are challenged. With money, you can buy tourism. So this monetary flow into the system have diverted people from production. Those who have access to that oil money do nothing other than, tank it. And from the tank, they disburse and live without production, which captures what one of the candidates in the 2023 election, Peter Obi, said: let us move from consumption to production. In other words, the oil money had fired consumption without firing production. That is it. For me, it is the government that needs to free itself from control of oil, from control of land, from control of minerals, because that is not how an economy runs. Especially when you say it's a market economy. A market economy where there is free demand and free supply. But if one sector or one agent controls the means of production by owning land, only minerals, then you cannot, other players are stranded. Other players are stranded.
All right. Now you've made mention that the oil is a major source of monetary growth in Nigeria. Why is it so? I mean, this talks about moving away from oil. It has been going on for years. Why hasn't it happened yet? Why are we still stuck on oil as a major source of monetary growth?
Yes, because when oil is exported from Nigeria, it's denominated in dollars. When the oil receipts come, the government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, monetizes it. In other words, instead of spending US dollars, because Nigeria is a sovereign country, we spend naira. So that dollar is multiplied by the exchange rate, and the government uses it to pay workers, pay the army, buy weapons, you know. If things were done properly, for instance, in the United States, the US government does not own oil, and the United States has more oil than Nigeria. But you know, the United States is a colonial country. So the places where you have oil, New Mexico, Texas, and you know, there are people who own the land on which the oil is found. The government can authorize or refuse to authorize mining because it's a sovereign. It will give reasons that we don't want mining in this area. In the Gulf of Mexico, which Trump is now calling Gulf of America, there is oil. Now, when government licenses people to produce oil, in fact, there used to be oil in Pennsylvania, that's in the Northeast. You mine, just like somebody is producing furniture. From your income, you pay tax. From the tax, the government gets into procurement. In other words, that oil production is not the source of government revenue. It is the production itself by an individual or by a company. What has happened in Nigeria is that, as Archbishop Okoje, Cardinal Okoje said, that Nigeria constitution had been constructed on the assumption that there is oil and it is infinite. That's why when you go to chapter 2 of the constitution, it says government shall. How it will do it, nobody knows. It just believes that there is oil. Now, the question you asked, why have we not changed? If I keep bad company, and you as my friends, you invited me, and you say, we will not invite you again unless you stop going with people who do 419, and if I stop, you will invite me. If I don't stop, you stop inviting me. It's for me to disengage from that thing that I'm doing that is wrong. Take Enugu, for instance. Because of the Land Use Act, almost every governor, almost every elected governor, you know, most of them, you know, the elected ones are from Enugu State. By the time they leave, they take something like, let me just be conservative, like 5 times the size of a football field in Enugu town. They allocate it to themselves or their relations, their spouses. They form all kinds of agency, NGO, mother and child friendly association. They give them land. That land, they divide it and sell. And if you watch billboards around town, you see that land is selling for millions. So it becomes a source of income. While people who genuinely need land, either to grow tomato, or they can't get land. And that's why you find people farming on roadsides. If you go around from here to Ogu, and you see people growing crops around on the road, endangering their lives because they don't have land. While those who don't need it take it and sell it and become rich forever. Employment. If you are governor, you can offer employment to anybody. You see all those billboards you see praising governors. There are people who pay for it, who provide it. But if you want to advertise Signature TV now on a billboard, you will be asked to pay heavily. But those people who are their agents mount those billboards and do nothing. So the only two billboards you find in the city are billboards praising the governor and billboards announcing the death of people who can afford it. It is the impact of this money that is unearned, unearned income, unearned receipts. In fact, in the accounting, it is called receipts, it's not income, because money will just be flowing into your bucket and you'll be spending.
All right. Now, we know that Nigeria has older sources of economic growth. So apart from this oil, can you do an assessment of the key sectors that, has older potentials for Nigeria?
Now we are moved away from money to economic sectors. There's the agri sector. I've just talked about people who farm are on the road. But you cannot engage in production if there is no incentive. The incentive for production is the gain or profits from that production. The agri sector had been depressed gravely because of the sources and uses of government funding. Government award contracts, maybe for roads. People are asked to come there to dig the ground, mix concrete. It doesn't require particular skill. That's employment that pays more than climbing palm tree to harvest the oil palm. Is a disincentive to agricultural production. So many young men and young women move to that sector, construction. Working in a mall, if you work in a mall, you will sit down, the place is air conditioned, and they are paying you some salary. It is more attractive than going to the farm to plant maize, and then monkeys will come and eat it up. Are you getting it? So government activity is a disincentive to many jobs. Mining is another sector. Many people in this Enugu, their parents were miners from the 1930s, 20s, 40s. They were not skilled people. They were, in the village. They moved into mining, sometimes by force. People like Chief Onyema, promised the colonial authorities that they will recruit mining labor for them. So they go to towns and ask their delegates to select people who will go and mine. Now, when they started mining and were earning monetary income, they saw an advantage. One, they could pay income tax for their brothers who have not come to the mine. So if the authorities confront their brothers in the village for tax, those who were earning money from the mines paid for their brothers. Sometimes they gave their brothers money to buy labor, to increase their farmland, to buy seedlings. But over time, they themselves who were in the mining, they were in the mines, got married, raised families, their families remained in the town. Their nephews, nieces in the village came to town to get education. They never went back. So that is why you find the villages are empty. People are not there. I was born in an urban area. I know my hometown, but that is all that I know. If you want to reopen Onyama mine, Obara mine today, there are nobody who can go into that mine and work. And that's why the mines are there, but they are not operating. What you now have around our home and Okana is open cast mining that damages the ground. But the Europeans who came were doing deep mining. They opened and then went in with shafts, bringing it and left the upper soil and planted melina to make sure that the thing remains stable. This one that they are doing open cast mining will, after they remove the coal, the place is abandoned. So it's wrong. And many of our people who are unemployed are not working there because they are not using machine, payloaders to excavate and then remove the iron. manufacturing sector. We used to have manufacturing sector. Anamco was there. Nigersem, all kinds of Avop at Natch. But if you pass there now, it's burned down. Nobody's interested because manufacturing is transformative job. You take inputs, you transform them, you generate output, and then you sell, you stock, you do this. Many of the people who have maybe supermarkets, I'll call them, yeah, but some people call them more. They don't employ buyers. If you go abroad and you go to next supermarket, St. Michael's, they employ people who have gone to university, polytechnics, who have learned the purchasing and supply. They go around looking for manufacturers and telling them that this your product can sell at this our mall. Bring them, we will display them, and then if you go to Spa, it's managed by Indians. I think they are the owners. They came from South Africa. You can see how malls are run. Of course, even the little manufacturing you have in Nigeria, based in Lagos, are owned by Indians and Chinese. So they can always get products to sell. Then their parents and their relations live in Dubai, live in London. Those people supply them with goods without going through the rigmarole of going to the bank to get what is called letters of credit. So they are well stocked. Unlike the Nigerian, like we saw that the ShopRite has closed because they don't have that type of network that the Indians operate. So the manufacturing sector is down because we depend on foreign machines, we depend on foreign inputs, we depend on foreign labor, the labor for manufacturing. I've mentioned agriculture, I've mentioned mining, I've mentioned manufacturing. Then the service sector, real services that are useful, like transportation, is dependent on import. I said we had Anamco, we had Leland, we had another one in Kanu, another one in... All of them are closed because they depend on foreign, they are assembly plants. But from assembly, you can move to manufacturing. Because when they were assembling, you had people who were producing tarpaulin here, producing seat cover, iron bending to add value. But all those things have collapsed. So the service sector, airline, it depends on Boeing. We don't have a manufacturer here. Even their service, routine servicing of aircraft is done abroad. So we are here just looking.
All right, now, Mr. Okeje, you've mentioned quite a number of things. Now, what struck me from things you said, particularly as regards agriculture and mining. Now, you said that, first of all, the Land Use Act giving lands to some people who can afford it, and then those who need it to actually farm don't have the land to farm, so they farm on the roadside. And most young people now would rather go for the job that pays more money than agriculture. You made mention of mining as well. Would you say that civilization has a role to play in the impact of these sectors like agriculture and mining and their growth in urban societies?
No, civilization actually is like making things tame. When you civilize people, you follow rules. That's what civilization does. What we are experiencing in Nigeria is not civilization. I watched, your brilliant analyst, Martin, talking about defection. The rules are clear, but the rules are broken by those people who ought to maintain the rules. I'm sure all of you went to school, you know your aunties and your headmaster. The headmaster will come to school in time. If his headmaster were to come late, he cannot challenge you for coming late. Is that also? Yeah. So what is happening is, will I say, disorder as the order. When disorder becomes the order, you pass through Market Road in Enugu, you can't move because There is a Ministry of Transport that licenses transporters, the tricycle, the small bus, the big bus. It is their duty to check the number of buses they have registered or permitted to run, the routes they are going to operate in, and limit the number. But anybody who comes, they license you. So you come there and you congest the road and nobody is moving. People now who ought to pass through that road keep avoiding it. Let me show you, let me demonstrate to you how economics work. In Enugu here, during the colonial days, there was a part of the GRA called Market Garden. You are surprised because your age, people in your age will not know. You know, the place there's a tunnel in Enugu now from Asata. Good. Where that tunnel ends on Abakaliki Road, on the opposite side, used to be called Market Garden. I told you that production is stimulated by incentive. Because there is an urban setting here, or people who earn income, who earn money income. If you produce, if you go to we call it Secretariat Quarters, opposite the railways on Ogui Road, a lot of people there struggle. They use manure from chicken to produce vegetables. And once they produce it, people buy it because there are people with money. But the government has allocated the market garden to people to build houses. Many of the houses there are not occupied, absentee landlords. There used to be a zoo in here. The zoo has been allocated to people as residents. But if you go to New Market, towards the foot of Meke Hill, you will see a lot of people from Ngwo who are bringing fresh vegetables, maize, and they sell quickly because the Enugu urban have people with money and prepared to buy. But if you were producing those things at Ugoba, the soil there is richer, but to bring it to Enugu, you will need transportation to and fro. By the time you come back, the market has closed. Are you following? If you leave it at Ugoba, everybody is growing. So the incentive is not there. The market, it is for government to create markets, to create, not shop, because when you say government to create market here, they build shop. And once you pay the first rent, you have no money to stock again and the place is closed. Many shops in Enugu are closed. So the diversification of the economy is to enable people who are able and willing to work and earn from their work. There is no job, including research, that is isolatory. It's only monks and hermits that live alone in a wilderness. Most work, including agricultural work, require group activity. When people go to farm in a group, they are happy because everybody is working his own portion. After some time, you stop, you come and gist. You say, oh, I saw this lady on Signature TV. I love the bow tie on her head. You know, after chatting for some time, you go back to your work. It's fulfilling. But if you ask somebody to go alone to the farm, he has no incentive to work. The time that we were producing a lot of food, people went to farm as a group. They had houses in the farm where they stay, grow their crop, then come back to the village, to celebrate and things like that. Even schools had farms. But now it's not the same.
So are you saying now, just to better understand you, are you saying now that our government or our leaders have either become too relaxed or too disorderly, and so they're not now pushing the economy to grow in other areas because of what they are benefiting from the oil sector?
Certainly, you have summarized it better than I can ever put it.
All right.
All right. Now, apart from what you said before, which are the challenges of diversification. What other challenges would you say hinders Nigeria from exploring all the potentials that we have in the country?
The same thing I told you before. There's what is called adverse incentive. Adverse incentive. You know, in your homes, when you were growing up, as young girls, you I don't know whether I call it training, but you were left to do certain things. If you had a younger sibling, you will carry the child, you will carry your sibling. If you are going to church with your sibling, you will be holding them to prevent them from running into traffic. But your brothers, who may be older than you, will just be sagging their knicker and walking around. Your parents may not challenge them. You will be told, you know, you finished eating in the house. You are the person that will wash the plates. Your mom is cooking. You come to assist your mom. If you don't do it, they will be challenged. But your brothers are playing with the ball, running around. Nobody is challenging them. Are you following? That is why when you see a young man who is not married, he becomes a problem both to himself and to the society. Because if you go to his house, he doesn't dress his bed, he doesn't wash his dresses, everything is scattered. But a girl is organized because you have picked it up, even as a child, because you have been pressured to do things well. Are you following? There is no incentive for the political leaders to behave properly. When Emma Para, Zik, and others were in office, this oil that belonged to the government, it wasn't like that before. The oil was in the eastern region. But the people who were mining it were Shell, Mobil, Texaco. The first refinery in Port Harcourt was owned by all the regions and the federal government. All the regions and the federal government. Today, all the refineries that are not working are owned by the federal government. So it has no incentive. But if everything belongs to all of us, everybody contributing capital, watching out, you know, appointing directors to represent our interests, it cannot be the way it is. So I've called it adverse incentive. Some people who are not in our region, they call it resource cost. Resource cost. Anytime you find a community where people can earn income, yeah, if you any place people can earn income from selling resources like land, mineral, they become unable to stress themselves to work. It has happened. I mean, in Lagos, you hear of Alaye. There are people who just go around claiming that they are landowners. If you are building a house, they ask you to pay them. In Enugu here, you find Obolo and Chiago. You know, all kinds of curious developments. It is the adverse incentive of the oil flow. Unless the government, and that's why when people talk about restructuring, that's why all the people who are defecting, they are not addressing the issue. If you have good governance in a state, you don't need to belong. What is center? In football, there is people who play forward, who play in the middle, who play in defense, and then the goalkeeper. But everybody now wants to be in the center, which means there will be nobody playing in the other wings. That cannot be correct.
All right. Now, apart from government, what role would you say private companies, international partners, or even all this public-private partnership, what role would you say that they play in diversification of our economy?
There is a lot of room for the private sector, foreign sector, or foreign players, and then people of goodwill, the people we call international partners. But your house must be in order. Unless the government operates properly by removing itself from this resource cost, it continues to be a disincentive. Enugu State government is part of the ownership of AVOP. But for almost 30, 40 years, nobody has cared. It was set up during a Sika regime. It is burned down, and nobody is bothered because, I mean, the governor does not require to lose sleep that ABOP is burned down. If the private sector is freed from control, I will give you an example. If you go to Obara Avenue, after almost opposite Enugu North local government, you will see a building, it's old type of building. It was built by a company owned by, I think, some Greeks. That company was in Enugu, was in Port Harcourt. It was the NCNC government, you know, from Zik to Obara and down. They had a long-term, we like call it, agreement with that company to be awarding construction contracts to them. So it's not like anybody, if somebody comes into office, he will bring his brother as contractor. But that company was also required to hire Nigerian contractors as subcontractors. The company we call RCC now, it used to be called Israel, the Israeli. They built a furniture company in Enugu at Iva Valley. They were producing furniture for government offices. Other people also buy from them. So if government guarantees a market for domestic production, it will fly. Look at the number of cars in Nigeria. But there is no one company manufacturing road wheels, tires, or battery. But before, when Obara and others were in office, we had a company in Ibadan called Excite. We had Michelin in Port Harcourt. We had Dunlop in Lagos. They were producing tires for cars in Nigeria. They were producing batteries. But these days now, you'll find, if you want to go and buy a battery now at Camp, they'll tell you, do you want Korea or China? So in this planning, there must be incentive for the foreigner who brings his resources here to invest, that there is a market. If somebody comes here to produce battery, and then the government does not patronize it, and it does not limit the import of, you know, deficient batteries from abroad, then the person will close.
All right. All right. A very big thank you to you, Dr. Stanislaus, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That is a bit tongue twisting. Dr. Stanislaus Ukeje, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
It's my pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much.
I love the interest you show in the economy, because the future belongs to you people.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for staying with us this morning on Signature Morning and for being a part of our conversation. Make sure to stay tuned as the morning show continues right after now. I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha.
And I am Lilian Wali. Enjoy.